All I know is after watching this finale, and even this season, but then the finale, the last two episodes that dropped, the Star Wars story writers, the Game of Thrones story writers, they've all been exposed. The lights turned on and the roaches scattered because this is how you end the season, but this is how you respect canon. This is how you respect a brand. This is how you respect characters. This is how you respect your own story and created something on the scale of Avengers Infinity War Endgame contained within that little tiny Netflix app. It blew me away. The performance there. I mean, some of the they had a lot of that they had to unpack. They had basically four stories going on at the same time, and all four of them all had huge stakes.
So what separates this? Because I'm Mike. I'm just tell you, I'm only like halfway through the first part of the season. Y'all can spoil me. It's okay. But what is it that is setting this season apart? Because I hear it all over the internet. Everyone's saying that.
What episode are you on?
I want to say I'm like on 4 of the first half.
So you just saw Dear Billy?
I think so.
So the last thing you saw was the Kate Bush thing.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah. So how did you feel about that episode in particular?
I mean, I thought it was strong. I don't know. The past seasons of Stranger Things, I gotta admit, they kind of lost me. Yeah. You know, I wasn't super enthusiastic going to this one. I do feel it's an upgrade, but I'm still not 100% in it.
I mean, I think the thing that does it for me, I mean, definitely the moment at the end, like the sequence at the end of Dear Billy, I think is really well developed from a character-driven narrative perspective. That it's something that is completely in the universe of the characters that they've created, and is using nostalgia to supercharge the emotional impact that character development is having for you. That to me is why that song has kind of become a popular culture phenomenon off of that episode, and so many people are really deeply connecting with it right now, is because it's all character driven. And I totally agree, Mario. Like season 2, season 3 in particular, just never really lived up to my expectations. Season 3, my memories of that are just kind of like speed running through the episodes.
100%. That's how I feel like I just sped through the whole season and it didn't really leave an impact on me.
Right. But I think that the length of this season makes that experience not possible.
Yeah.
That you kind of like, you have to chunk it out a little bit more. And, you know, I will say, like, I do think that this is a true accomplishment of modern television, that it's one of the most complete objects that's ever been crafted. Is there a little bit of fat that you could cut? Yes. Are there some choices that you could make to maybe refine it a little bit? Like, I could see a case being made for the whole Hopper narrative really only being something that comes in at the third act of the season, that you don't need to see him in the goulash for the entire time for that narrative to mean as much as it does.
Yeah.
That you don't necessarily need to be riding around in the car with with Lucas and the Riverdale kid for us to hate the Riverdale kid. Right? Like there's a lot of stuff that probably could be thinner if it needed to be. But I feel like the fact that it didn't have to be in this particular experience, and that you could have each episode be completely different lengths, and that you're segmenting it out as like, here's 85% of it and then the last 15%, all of those are really unique experience that for me, as someone that consumed on the first to second day the first part, and consumed on the first day the second part, that it's been a really powerful experience. And I've found myself going back to that scene at the end of Dear Billy, just particularly because I think it really beautifully, better than any media I've seen, captures the experience of someone that is isolating themselves from the people around them and the destruction of the prison that you've kind of created for yourself. And in this case, Vecna is creating the physical entity that she ends up escaping from, but it's her move to action that saves her own life there. And that's just like some of the stuff that I fell in love with this season.
And and you're 100% right on that scene. You know, the stakes. This season was all about stakes. The stakes were high. You know, and JJ was saying they have so much leeway for how long the episodes could be. Usually it's the other way around. I was like, wow, they could have made these a lot shorter. These were all 45 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
How many hours of Stranger Things is this season?
Well,
it's five hours longer than the longest previous season.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's about 15, 20 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because that was
why cut anything?
2.5 hours and then an hour and 20 or an hour and 40 for just the two that dropped, you know, for the volume 2. But you're right, they absolutely didn't have, and like Mike said, maybe they could have, like it all wasn't necessary, but it created the vibe. And JJ, I think you said this when you were here, that you almost wanted to do a pitch for why aren't you watching, and you were making an argument for why aren't you watching Stranger Things for the people that abandoned it, particularly in season 2. I abandoned it in season 2, and then I went back and kind of muscled through because I was like, this has to get better. This has everything that I do like, and I made it through. And I was probably one of the few that I did enjoy season 3. I enjoyed it way more than season 2. So I enjoyed season 3 enough that I was ready for 4, and it blew me away, like from the word go. I feel like they said, okay, we know that this is going to end in season 5, and they took the notes from, you know, Lost, you know, the Lost showrunners, like, we need to know when this ends so we can go back and we can really plan this out. And you can tell, to me, there's no wasted movement now. Now the best professional wrestler you've ever seen that has no wasted movement, where even to the point where what you would consider wasted movement is not really wasted movement because it is creating, and we don't even know what that's going to lead to, why we saw so much of the, you know, the extra fluff, what it's going to mean. Like my son was like, what do you think they're going to do with Argyle? It was just like, he was kind of like just fluff for the season, right? But
yeah,
like,
Argyle's dead sooner or later.
Yeah, it's like, of course it's like, I don't feel like they're gonna have that wasted movement.
Well, and I think that's also part of what I love so much about it is that this feels like the Stranger Things story is partially to me the story of someone coming up with a fresh new idea, getting a reasonable budget, doing most things practical, then getting more budget, then getting more budget, and that the second step and the third step, they're stumbling along the way. And then the fourth step, they're like, oh, you're going to give us as much budget as we want? Well, we're going to make insanely long television episodes with like Marvel level digital effects. And they've kind of like been growing into that over the last couple of seasons. And now they finally like knew what they were doing as blockbuster creators after just coming to the table with like a Steven Spielberg, Stephen King, like Steven, tribute. And it's like you can watch this series as them learning how to make expensive Hollywood movies.
It's funny.
Did the pandemic maybe have something to do with it? Because if you think about it,
yes,
I bet Netflix was like, hurry up and make Stranger Things season 2 now.
Yeah,
we want it now. It's premiering tomorrow. And now the pandemic slowed everything down, so they had a lot more time to work on it.
Again, we got
actually render those effects. Takes a lot of time to render. It's not at work.
It's not at work, Randy.
Yeah.
It's not at work. Render is not at work. Again, hot off the presses right now. I meant to tell you guys this earlier before we started talking. The Duffer Brothers today it was announced that they launched Upside Down Pictures, an exclusive deal that they have with Netflix that is going to include a Stranger Things spinoff and an adaptation of the Talisman from Stephen King's,
Creating their IPs, man.
creating the IP.
Yep.
So that was all stemming from
Everything is about the IP now, man. Everything's about IPs.
it's coming from hot off of why season 4, the love that season 4 is getting. I'm not seeing a lot of negative press on, and it is like you said, it's all about the IPs. But to me, this was like a young enough series where like nobody knew what Stranger Things was. It came out of nowhere, and it was just basically.
They made it. It's an original IP,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, that would be like if Free Guy was popular enough that there was now a Free Guy studio.
Yeah.
Uh, I really think that there is something distinct about this franchise, and part of me also thinks they're speed running franchise genres. So, like, the next season we're going to actually get this fantasy world where the Upside Down is here, right? Like, this season was more of that like action horror. Seasons before, they're kind of playing with stuff. They did a great job of recontextualizing a lot of shit that I never cared about before,
Right.
in a way that doesn't make me like feel like I need to go back and watch it again, but makes me feel like, okay, at least you put a little bit of effort into trying to make that aspect of the narrative make sense and fit into this world without it just being like you needing to keep actors in place. Also, Mario, you mentioned the pandemic. I think that a big, like, this narrative was probably completely different before the pandemic too. That the small groups that they had spread out as their like shooting groups, I think that is completely pandemic inspired. They probably would have had a lot more scenes together with larger groups, but that it was a lot easier for them to schedule over long periods of time these small bundles of actors together in disparate different places. And I think you're seeing that a lot in movies now. The ambulances, all of Jake Gyllenhaal's movies over the last 2 years.
Definitely, we're getting the pandemic movies right now.
Yeah,
all the pandemic
and I think
stuff
this
is
is
coming
that
out.
pandemic cinematic TV show.
It is, yeah, hands down a cinematic streaming event, cinematic TV show, 100%. We saw the trend happening, right, where it used to be the dirty word that I'm doing TV until I can become a movie star, and then movies became flooded with whatever studios made movies to the point where then all the really rich, great writers went back to that small screen, and now there's the rush to go back in the other direction of just like the streaming. So is this going to lead to like a renaissance of original films that are just like, well, we can't give you any slot on our app, but we can give you a small theatrical window just to get people back in theaters. I don't know.
It's a crapshoot, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, it's a total crapshoot. I'm sure Netflix, when they produced this show, had no idea it was going to be this big. They probably were just like, okay, they're talking about the 80s. It happens in the 80s. We love it. Here's some money.
Yeah.
And it turned into this.
Go.
Go. Just get it on the air now. HBO's coming out with an app.
I would have 100%, and I would do this tomorrow if Alamo or even IMAX said we're going to show that finale on theaters on the big screen. I would go see it. I'd go see it, even though I can watch it for free on my phone right now. I'd want to experience that finale, those pops in a theater, because they, Mario, you're in for a treat. We don't even have to talk about what they are, but they have those moments that you want people to cheer in theaters.
I mean, the most metal moment
Oh.
ever. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. That shit
No.
is so fucking sick.
No.
It's a unique moment to be able to exist in a way that you're not like, oh, this is like a Meatloaf album cover. But it is like a fucking Meatloaf album cover in real life, and it just feels so good. It feels so
my
good.
God. That's hands down one of the scenes that I'd want to see on the big screen, is that, because it just kind of blew me away of how much I enjoy that. And it's funny, Mike, you talked about the Steve. Oh,
Sorry.
I was like, did I hit something?
That was me, my bad.
But the Steve movie arc, I was telling my son, and I was just like, oh man, I don't know what Steve's future is. And he's like, man, they can't do something bad to Steve, right? And I was like, don't you remember he was the heel in season 1? And then he became he became that popular heel that they couldn't do it. And then they're like, maybe we'll give her to Billy. And then they create Eddie. But they're so good at creating these characters that you don't want something to happen to them, even when they're straight up heels that were. But then you have someone like you keep calling the Riverdale heels. Those are the ones that your parents would have liked in the 80s. But like those are the assholes that you want to see. Yeah, kill that guy.
I mean, I feel like the Duffers finally learned how to create a heel this season.
Oh
right?
yeah,
like Vecna and Riverdale, they're both the most intrinsically hateable characters they've ever made.
Yeah, hands down. And that's what you want. Like what Jericho says, like we need enough. We need to have wrestlers that are not trying to be the cool heels. We want the ones that really are heels that people don't want to be. Don't buy my merch. Don't say my catchphrase. Don't sing my song. Don't my chant. That's like you said. Riverdale was 100%. There's nobody that's watching. Well, at least I hope not. Or those weren't. I can't see people that are empathized was like, yeah, I kind of get what he's doing there. He is literally like oh no, this guy's going to go fuck it all up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have so many opportunities for spin-offs too, just because they have been so good at creating these lovable side characters that's most likely something they're going to continue to lean into with this expanded venture that they're going into. I when they first created the series, they were going to kill Elle off in the first season because they thought this was going to be an anthology about all of the individual numbered powered kids that had all these different powers, and there were comic book spin-offs and all that kind of stuff that like people with fire powers and people with ice powers, and it's like this weird X-Men like rip off. And the aesthetic that they filmed the show with was so much more over than the narrative that they were trying to tell, that they ended up just basically like bricking the entire narrative approach that they were taking. And I think they've probably done that 3 to 4 times up to this point. And this season, to me, in its totality, just feels like that perfect melding of that nostalgia aesthetic mixing with nostalgic storytelling that makes you not really care how old the kids are. I just feel like they really hit something here, and that they've probably planned this out as the final 2 stages. And I think that that's something that franchises can really take to the bank. You don't have to put out any effort into the 2nd or 3rd chapter in a 4 or 5 chapter story. So long as 1, 4, and 5 kick ass, everyone's going to love everything.
I think you're right. Do you foresee, like, we know season 5 is going to be the end, and now they're talking about a spin-off. And there's going to be a time jump, I believe, from 4 to 5. They're going to try to catch it up so the kids look a little bit more age.
They need to save money on de-aging effects.
Yeah.
You can't afford it. Can you jump ahead in time, please?
The age appropriate, so they are going to jump ahead. And I think this story obviously lends to it because they can easily, if they wanted to, they can approach. This had more of the, Mike, to me, the Langoliers feel. Like people are starting to wonder, like, what is the Upside Down? And Mario, you already saw this because this was in the earlier episodes when they're in the Upside Down and they went to go get the gun, and like, oh, the gun doesn't exist here yet. And that's what it reminded me of Stephen King, The Langoliers, where the dots come and basically the past starts to die, and then you have these things that absorb the past. I feel like, oh, okay, so that's where they're leading to with the Upside Down. But that means if you're looking at it as a line like that, a timeline, they could, if they wanted to, jump forward. But you think that would take away from the story of just like, oh, come on, they just did time travel?
No, I think they're absolutely going to tell this story, right? Because in this series, I guess season 4, they start to tell you the origin story of the Upside Down, and you learn by the end of part 1 that the Upside Down existed, and that 1 went there when 11 got really pissed, and in chapter 2. You find out that it was a barren landscape, that one was an explorer walking around, and that Demogorgons already existed, and that the matter that create, or the energy that create, that is the Mind Flayer, already existed within the landscape, but Hawkins isn't there, and we don't know anything really beyond the point of L opens the door accidentally when remote viewing and seeing a Demogorgon. And so I think that we're going to continue to get that story of one somehow, and how he integrated with the land. And then I think we're going to get up to the point where Will is there, because Will is the only other person that we have known to survive in the Upside Down for any extended period of time. And it just so happens that the specific date that Hawkins is stuck on is the date that Will went into the Upside Down in series 1. So there's got to be some sort of connection there where Will and his relationship to the Upside Down, his relationship to Vecna, which we see hinted at in the final moments of the series, I just think that there's something huge there that we don't know everything about right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they're at the point now where they just hit a peak. So they have a lot of things that they will need to address. Are you concerned that there's a chance where all this goodwill they have from 4 of them not being able to stick the landing with a lot of threads that they're going to have to close? I don't think they have to close all of them, obviously, because they're going to have spin-offs, and you can't tell me in 10 years that they're not going to say, hey, how about we just have one reunion film? I'm sure it'll come, once some time passes. But are you concerned that they're not going to stick the landing?
I mean, I liked Infinity War more than Endgame,
Yeah.
So can I just interject one real quick? Does any show ever stick the landing? Honestly, is it ever a satisfying finale for a show? Can you think of one?
I think I'll say 2 controversial ones that a lot of people think Seinfeld didn't stick the landing, but if you understood what those characters were about, I think it did. And it just, they wanted something different. And to me, I think Lost did. I think Lost went off the rails, and then they cleaned it up nicely at the end, to the point where when you start understanding physical and non-physical and time and reality and everything happening at the same time. So the sideways, and I think they did. Now, they left a lot of narrative strings, but if you go back and listen to those interviews, they said, yeah, we want people to take off with these stories. And I would be the first one in line that we're going to get a new group of people that may or may not be tied to the island that are going to go back. So those 2. But again, that's my opinion. But if you ask the popular opinion, no, nobody stuck the landing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe Perfect Strangers. I don't think there's enough Perfect Strangers scholars out there for me to know off the top of my head if the final.
Balky gets his citizenship. It's great.
Okay, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. That sounds like they stuck it.
Oh man, and I like the tie with the Lost showrunners making the leftovers, and then you got the tie-in because they were
leftovers.
Yes, and they were a huge fan of Perfect Strangers, and that was part of the narrative.
Yeah. I mean, nothing really, are there iconic endings that remain with a single image or a portion of an episode or a series that lives outside of the realms of good and bad for me? Yeah, I think The Sopranos fits that. That final camera moving across the diner as he sits down with his family and ending on the bathroom door.
Sopranos may be the last great one, in my opinion.
That was a good one.
That one was good.
Yeah, that one really
did. I never really watched Breaking Bad, but I believe that they had a rather raucous ending.
I think it was okay. I don't think it hit the level of iconic. Okay. I think it was satisfactory. There's a pass fail and they passed, but I don't think anybody ever flashes back or discusses the Breaking Bad finale as much as the Sopranos finale.
I think of like, and now I'm going way back, and I can't even remember what it was, but I'm trying to think of like my parents talking about like MASH, of just like how emotional that was, even though it was a comedy. But I don't know if you would, but they even understood what like a show ending meant back then compared to now, where we want that clean ending. You think of the Snow Globe, right? That's another older cut. Was that Saint Elsewhere, and that a lot of people were pissed off about that one. The Newhart waking up in his other show, waking up as a dream. His new show was a dream of his old show.
You talking about Heart to Heart?
Newhart, Bob Newhart, the Bob Newhart show. Remember, one of his shows ended when he woke up in bed with his wife from his old show. So his new show was a dream in his old show. I like that meta, but no, I think you're right. I think there isn't one that you're going to get the majority of the people who said that, yes, that was a great ending. Now, I think the most memorable one that we know is Game of Thrones is the only ending that I know that made people go back and hate what they loved. That to the point where they almost feel like they just woke up in bed with somebody they had no idea, they don't remember going home with, and like that was a horrible experience. Lose my phone number, I never want to see you again. They did the reverse of sticking the landing of like they went back in time and undid a lot of goodwill to the point where a lot of people didn't even watch the trailer for the new spinoff show that's happening because they're still starched from that.
I don't think those shows are going to get over, honestly.
No, there's no way. I mean, not in this day and age. Look what happened to the Potterverse. Right? Look at what all the stuff that's happened.
Jesus. Yeah,
there's no forgiving. Even you can even argue like Lord of the Rings that they had all the love, but I mean, did The Hobbit didn't get that kind of love? So I mean, it's gonna be. I think Stranger Things it's gonna be tough, but I think they're going to do it. Maybe I'm being cautiously optimistic, but I think they are going to stick the landing if they stick with what they're doing right now. And I think the best way to end it is find a way to not fully end it, but then people feel a little unsatisfied. But if you have too much closure, you're going to make some people angry. So it's a tightrope, man.
I have an alternate solution. Never end any show. Just let it fade off into obscurity, and people can wonder about it forever.
I mean, that's what everyone used to do, right? Like, I was thinking back to like my favorite shows growing up, like not even just like live action stuff, but thinking like Nicktoons and things like that. And it's like, eventually they just like fade into requel, reboot, like. How is this thing ever going to end? Like the Rugrats just got rebooted in 3D, right? Like that was a thing. That show's never going to end.
I mean, in the Alf finale, he was captured by the government and taken to Area 51.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, that's how it ended, and they just left it there.
I mean, I think another way to look at it though is like it feels like at this stage with the like leniency that the Duffer Bros are being given, it's going to be really hard for them to like just distribute their uncut, pure vision of what they think this ending should be. We're basically just like straight to the Snyder cut because Netflix isn't coming in with any creative feedback for the Duffers at this point.
No.
Right. And so like in that context, I think all studios are really struggling with that. I think Marvel is getting into this point where it's like everything's starting to feel formulaic again. And they don't feel that way. They feel like they're breaking their own rules more for the first time than they have before. And so it seems like it's going to be really hard to walk away without like having all the same itches scratched that you try to get scratched from a major series. We get cameos in Stranger Things. Oh, that's Freddy Krueger. Oh, that's a cardboard cutout of Freddy Krueger. Oh, that's a mask of Michael Myers.
Oh, here's a character from a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, totally, man. Oh, here's a kid reading fucking Stephen King.
Here's young Steven Spielberg.
You get all of that shit, right? It's the same thing as us going through Marvel and being like, oh my God, did you see the person in the blue jacket with the yellow lines that's sitting at the diner? That's Hamburger Man. As soon as he eats his hamburger, he becomes super, super strong. And the person with you is just like, who the fuck cares about Hamburger Man? You're like, I love this fandom. And that's what they're doing for the 80s. And they did it better this season than they have ever before. I think they're going to continue that trend. I think we're going to start to see everybody die. And I just think nothing's going to be sacred. Like season 4 to season 5, I think has no reason not to equate in terms of impact equally with part 1 and part 2 of the It miniseries.
Oh wow, yeah. I think sacrifices will have to be made. I think
They
you're
got
right.
L's got to die. Like everybody's got to die.
Yeah.
Like every loose end that causes complications in the relationship puzzle needs to die. Like we got to be set up at the end with clean couples for all of these people to like stand arm in arm with, looking over the town that they like helped protect as their kids run off and like one of them gravitates a fucking rock, you know.
Right. All right, let's go through our list really quick. So I think we're all in agreement. I think to stick that landing, I think L has to sacrifice, which means Mike Wheeler can't go because he's gonna have to be there to mourn L.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious. Will is the next one that I think he could be the potential. He could be a potential sacrifice as well. I think. Are there any untouchables of people who can't be sacrificed? Yeah, I think Henderson, man, Dustin Henderson is like when you think Stranger Things, he's one of the faces that pops in your head. He's one of the characters that connected with so many people because he had such a memorable. I think he is probably the closest you have to untouchable in Stranger
Yeah.
Things.
He's fucking Columbo telling the story
Yes.
at the beginning of Princess
Yeah,
Bride.
exactly.
Right? Like,
He has to be the one
yeah,
that lives to tell the tale. Explain. I think it
exactly.
has to be him.
Exactly.
I don't know about Steve. I am curious because you.
He's made it this far, right? Like he seems like he's gonna die every single year, and they rewrite around him.
I mean,
Um,
you feel like you want to get because you watched him. He was the original Riverdale heel that you're like, but he was just except he had
I think
redeemed.
Steve. I think Steve gets the full redemption arc at this stage.
Yeah,
I
that's
think if
what I
you're
would
gonna
look-
kill him. You killed him. You killed him in season 4.
Yeah,
Because he's the guy that gives. He's the Coulson in that context, right? Eddie's not the Coulson. They haven't lost someone that really, really makes them fight.
yes,
That's going to happen in season 5. So we're going to lose someone really meaningful really early. It's not going to be L. L. We're probably going to lose in Act 3.
yeah,
Right? But I like to think that we'll end up with 1 to 2 people surviving from every kind of nuclear family group. And so I think what ends up happening is if L dies, Mike does survive to mourn, but I think Hopper also survives to mourn
yeah. I
because
agree.
he lost his daughter, and that's going to have this full connect thing, and he's going to be trying to like sacrifice himself to save her, but then she's going to step up and be like, you know, say something that makes him accept the death of his daughter in a more meaningful way, and that's like the Hopper arc. And if you have Hopper, you should probably keep Winona
Yeah,
because that's
agreed.
the couple at the end. And I think if you kill Winona at this stage, that just also seems like a waste to me. That she was the main character of season 1.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it would get the value that they want because again, she's too good of a character that you would want her to be the one mourning, you know, because she has, you know, her other son Jonathan. You know, she has the brooding son. I think at like you said, for each of the nuclear families, I think you know Joyce and Jonathan survive, and Will would be the one. Even though I don't like when it could take away the importance of what happened to Will in season 1, but I think it does. It's the cleanest that you can go in that route. I
Right.
see them surviving. I don't see any value in taking, you know, killing Lucas because I feel like I can see him as he had a really cool turn around this story of how like almost like his loyalty was questioned, and you were starting
Right.
to wonder of just like, is the peer pressure going to get him? And then he had that nice swerve, and then he had that awesome stuff at the end, that I did not even see coming, on how much weight that was going to put, when he was basically protecting Max, and then going through that. So I don't see him going. I could see Max, even though she's on the ropes now, I can see the job getting finished and her not
Yeah.
surviving. I can see that.
Well, I think there's the least like reverberating impact from Max dying. I do think you have to kill either Steve or Jonathan, honestly.
Yeah.
Like one of them has to go so that Nancy can have a fulfilling, unconflicted
Yeah, because
ending.
Nancy's surviving. You're right.
Right,
So
Nancy's surviving, right? But I think that Nancy's mom is dead. I wouldn't be surprised if the little sister gets it, if the dad gets it, the whole Wheeler extended family basically gets
yeah.
taken in some massive event. Um, Maury's probably gonna die. Uh,
Oh, Maury, man. Well, Mario,
Maury's
Mario? Have you gotten to the Maury stuff yet?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
The Maury, oh, just his know-how of navigating the Soviet Union and his know-how of martial arts quickly
is so
made
good.
him such a powerful character, where he was almost like comedic, and now he's
Yeah.
comedic, but he's so like you don't save Hopper this season without Maury. Like
He's like Steve in
yeah,
a way,
he
right?
became
Like
that
he
Steve
weaseled his
character.
way into this like main role amongst the cast. Um, so maybe I could also just see that if you're gonna kill Will, like if Dustin is the survivor of the group, you could kind of kill all of them.
That's funny. That's what JJ just said. Will be the only one to survive, and he'll continue to be
Yeah.
miserable for the rest of his life.
I mean, I think if Will survives, then it's like you can see that as a piece of the Upside Down surviving at this stage,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just difficult to see defeating it without having something
And
come
there's
in here.
no heel turn coming from Will that the upside down completely consumes him. I see I kind of agree what you're saying now. I can see Jonathan making the sacrifice
Yeah.
and taking the bullet, the
Right?
proverbial bullet for Will and or Nancy, because I can kind of see him wanting
For
to kind of
both.
yeah,
Like
I can
he
see
like
that.
he was self-righteous before, right? Like his in terms of his character, if we look at his character going from the beginning to here, he's at a trough. He's at a low point for his character right now. He's fucking stoned out of his mind, hanging
Yeah.
out with Argyle, living way below his potential. So he's gonna have to come up. Steve is at a high point right now. And by come up, I mean like have a climactic moment. Um, I mean, Steve is sort of on a high point right now. I think Steve had a tough season, honestly. Kind of got lost in the mix.
He did. He did. Like, because especially, we were talking about all four of these arcs going on at the same time, and there was one big gap that you're like, wait, where the hell are they?
Right.
Like, it's just like, oh, he's still hanging from a vine? What the hell? But shout out to two legends in here, which I don't think are going anywhere. Is we talked about this, the legend himself, Paul Reiser, right? So I don't think Dr.
Ooh,
Owens
yeah.
is going anywhere, because he's killing it in The Boys, and he kills it
Yep.
in Stranger Things, and then obviously the Summer of Hawk, Robin. I don't think she's going anywhere. She's just too likable.
I know, but that's the thing. Like the other way that you can kind of investigate who is going to die in a Stranger Things series is by ranking them based on who you like the most.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
good point. Good point.
Like who you like the most and know the least. That's kind of like the equation.
Oh
Like
man, yeah.
Eddie, loved Eddie this season. His season was awesome. His arc was clean. By the end of the season, you love him more than anybody. And
Oh
he
yeah,
goes the way.
almost the star of the entire. I mean, he was such a powerful part of this entire season. It
He was like the glue of that final sequence.
oh yeah,
Um,
it was so clean. It was so clean.
So I could see, I mean, I could see Robin going, but I could also see them just knocking off the love interest that they introduce at the end early on and like activating Warrior Robin, right? Like,
Yeah.
because there's some that's the stakes are going to have to be personally upped for every single one of these groups. We saw it happen with Dustin. We've seen it happen with 11. Mike is sort of in that a little bit, but he's still just been outside of it. We're seeing like direct deaths. Lucas is directly involved, Lucas's sister. People are getting skin in the game in terms of loss that they are experiencing on a personal level. And I think you're going to have that universally across the entire group. And when you look at the trajectory of season 5, time skip or not, there's going to have to be an inciting factor that makes the group feel like they're running out of time or they need to do something now. And in order to make those stakes feel really valuable, that first quarter of that season has to be very Game of Thrones about killing people every episode.